Ranch girls softball team who won the CIF Division 1. They were also the Southern California Regional Champions as well. Great job, Pine Ranch High School girls softball. Also want to congratulate San Isidro High School girls lacrosse team, which was the CIF Division 3 champions. Congratulations, San Isidro High School girls lacrosse. And this one we already recognized, but I'll repeat again. Jalen Williams from Eastlake Track and Field, who won CIF State Championship for the 3,200 meter category. Congratulations. Brief note, it was a wonderful year for all of our athletic programs for our student athlete scholars, and I wish continued success during 24-25. And really, just they continue to demonstrate and be an example for the rest of our community. So, to our student scholars, our scholar athletes, congratulations. We also continue to work closely with the City of Chula Vista, San Diego State University, UC San Diego, Assemblymember David Alvarez's office, Southwestern Community College, as well as other organization in the community regarding making sure that we extend our support for efforts to bring institutions of higher learning to Chula Vista and more broadly to the South Bay. We believe this is something important and we continue to work with all partnerships and collaboration. Our district also hosted the solar sprint competition at Montgomery Middle School. That is something that happened all through the pandemic, and I'm glad to see it's only growing now that we have the ability to be present in person again. I also had an opportunity to attend the Golden Pyramid Scholars Program organized by the Urban League of San Diego. I do want to extend my gratitude to the Urban League. We appreciate the partnership that we've had going back a number of years. I also attended the Olympian High School Senior Experience event that we just heard about. What a wonderful event where students really get to present on their learning journey and their experience. I wanted to take a moment to recognize the great work happening there at Olympian. I also had an opportunity to attend our classified staff recognition event. I want to extend my gratitude to our CSA partners as well for including us in that celebration. I wanted to note that the Office of State and Federal puts on a wonderful event, the Sweetwater Union High School District Excellence Award, which recognizes our staff, our parents, our students. A wonderful event. A number of us were there, and I wanted to make sure we extended our gratitude to the team that put that together. Another celebration, I wanted to recognize one of our assistant principals, Mr. Amilcar Fernandez, who was honored as Assistant Principal of the Year by the California Latino Association of Administrators, or CASA. Congratulations, Mr. Fernandez. Lastly, just wanted to make note of a couple of construction projects that we kicked off recently at Eastlake High School Library Rehabilitation Project, which should help us bring an outstanding facility to Eastlake High School and really modernize that library there, as well as groundbreaking at Castle Park High School for a field classroom and quad modernization project as well. Again, those are projects that we've been working on, and I would be remiss if I didn't extend our gratitude to the community for supporting those. And it really does take a community-wide approach to work on all these projects. So I wanted to recognize that as well. And again, thank you to all of our team, certificated, classified, all the management, board of trustees, our parents, and our community for yet another successful year here at Sweetwater with all the projects that we mentioned earlier. With that, gracias, and thank you for the opportunity to serve.
We will now have a message and a report from the student board representative, Mr. Isaiah Greenfield.
Happy summer all. I know for a lot of you, it's not summer. It might just be me. But also at work. I work at SeaWorld, so I have some work to do. I'm in summer school. So last month was my last time meeting with ASB presidents, so there's nothing to report. As far as the ASB presidents, they're all gone. They're off. Today and tomorrow is ASB camp at Ocho Ranch High, and at Chula Vista High, I'm the ASB president, so that's exciting. It's always nice to network with other students. I was also nominated, and I'm the president-elect of the NAACP San Diego Youth Council, so I'm incredibly to work with them and somehow combine to work with Sweetwater Union High School District and the NAACP.
Okay, thank you, Isaiah. What we're going to do right now, we're going to move on over to 08, and I'm item 08, and it's 2-1. Thank you so much. The first thing that we'll be presenting will be Benita Vista alumni. And there are very few times we have consultants that are our alumni, and I just would think it's something for me to bring up, very close.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I threw the Union, not the Tribune, so it was like dark, and I didn't really read the headlines when I was folding the paper, on my paper route as a kid. So thank you, members of the board. I'm gonna take, try to take just 5 minutes.
Eugene, will you let me introduce you?
Sure.
So, what is important, not only is Eugene an alumnus of Benita Vista, which is top on our mind, he is our bond counsel. And so tonight you will be considering a number of items that relate to a bond. And we've obviously had many a conversation around bond issuances and the bond work. And so Eugene and his team at ORIC have assisted us in putting together the resolution and the documents that are coming up. And one of the things that we think is really important, and we've done for this board in the past when a bond came up, was to make sure that you understand the rules of the road around bonds and what that means and what you're allowed to say and what you're allowed to do, other than taking your statutory obligation to vote to determine placement of a bond. And so Eugene is here to make that presentation, but I didn't get to introduce him, so I wanted to make sure that you had that opportunity to be, Jenny and I get, and Joanna get a lot of time with Eugene in getting ready for this presentation.
Great, so I'll try to just take about 5 minutes. What I'd like to do, as Jenny said, is present the rules that apply to the conduct of an election and the conduct of a campaign. And this presentation is in keeping with the practice of training for the board and senior staff members of the district consistent with the policy. And so I'll jump right in. And then as Jenny said, this frames or describes the rules that will be applicable if the board decides to approve a bond resolution tonight. Then these would be the rules that apply after the call of the election. So there we go. I've just kind of described everything on that slide. First, I'll just give an overview. California law is clear in requiring that no public resources be used for partisan purposes. And the simple explanation is people who are both for and against a particular measure are taxpayers. And so the law is designed to avoid giving one party advantage over the other. So rule number one is, and as we're going to get into, is that public resources cannot be used for partisan purposes. And I will, these materials are available to you. I'm not going to read every word. I have wordy slides, apologies in advance, but I will touch on what I think are the most important highlights. Just on this slide in the introduction, you can call out that resources, public resources are extend beyond things like, making copies and mailing mailers, but also to things like the email servers or the use of a personal mobile phone that might be a work phone, a district phone. So those kinds of resources. So to cover these next two very wordy slides quickly, these laws are contained in the California Government Codes, the Political Reform Act, which creates the Fair Political Practice Commission. And so these slides give you some background on that, how the act exists, and the purpose of the commission, And on the second slide here, you see that there are resources if you have questions about the applicability of these rules. One of the things that I did skip over in an earlier slide was to say that in our role as bond counsel to the district, we are under the umbrella of a district resource. So part of the purpose of giving you this presentation now is because this is not something that we will advise the campaign about if the bond measure gets called. We'll always be available to advise district staff and the district in its, about these rules, but we won't be engaged in any way in advising a political campaign for the bond measure. And so these contact information is for that purpose, to seek other advice. What are the rules then? I'll just jump into that. As I said, you cannot use public resources for partisan purposes. Some of the things, these are sort of the examples of do's and don'ts to keep in mind as you get into the period of time after calling the election. And I'll just kind of go through a couple of these quickly. You're not permitted, as it says here, to urge voters to vote for or against. Bumper stickers, posters, etc. can't be produced by the district to promote the bond measure. Even releasing an employee early from their duties to allow them to campaign is an effective use of public resources. What you can do, however, is make objective information available to the public in a manner that you ordinarily would. So the way you communicate with the community in Sweetwater, which you do a very good job of, I will observe, you're not prohibited from continuing that practice. So these rules don't disallow that. It's just that information about the bond projects and the election, the measure that's been placed on the ballot has to be objective and informational. Over here, I've kind of touched on all of these. One thing to note, which is just to kind of say this so you hear it, the style, tenor, and timing of communication is a big thing that courts have focused on. So it's one thing to say, we have a quarterly newsletter that goes to parents, and then all of a sudden you can't rapid fire out 5 newsletters in 1 quarter. That's part of how the law looks at these limitations. Okay, and public appearances by senior staff and board members are permitted when you are invited. If you are invited to speak about and provide information about the measure, just keep a record of the invitation for record keeping purposes, but you are allowed to accept those invitations. That's not a violation of these rules. And then this is the part, a little bit of the just scared straight. It is actually both potential civil law violation as well as criminal law violation for the individuals who use public resources improperly. So I want to just make sure that everyone's aware. The good news is you don't give up your freedom of speech just because you called an election. And this is an important counterbalance to understand. So as a voter yourself and a member of the public, a citizen of the United States, you've got your free speech rights. To touch on some of these, wearing a campaign button in a classroom, for example, as a teacher, is considered improper, but teachers having a conversation about the bond measure away from the students is fine. That's free speech. School district officers and employees are not prohibited from soliciting contributions or helping to promote the passage of the measure. Just measure, just can't do it at school on their during the time of their employment. Oh, and finally, if the school district itself has rules around that govern, people's speech. You can't have special rules for the bond measure. They just have to be applicable to all social issues that, for which the district may already have. Okay, and then campaign finance reporting requirements aren't necessarily a big limitation, but you should be aware that the rules regarding, this is more applicable to the campaign, the rules regarding campaign contributions are very strict, and they're going to need to be mindful of campaign financial reporting rules. I won't go into these details, but you can see here some examples of what are and are not contributions to the campaign. And finally, just to make sure you understand that federal finance rules are not applicable to local bond measures. So really what we're focused on, as the presentation described earlier, is the California law, not federal law. So I'll stop there and invite any questions that you guys might have about the conduct of this campaign or the bond measure rules as applies to the board and members of the staff.
This is the same presentation that we received the last time that or has it been modified at all?
This has not been given. This is the first, to my knowledge, this is the
So
first time.
I previously did this presentation,
Oh, you did?
and he sounds much more scholarly,
Oh,
but otherwise the
apologies.
information was the same.
At the first reading?
No, the last time we did a bond,
Yes.
Oh, I
That's
see. Got it.
that's what I
That
was.
was 2018.
yes, but I still sounded less scholarly.
You aren't charged for remembering it from 6 years ago.
And just for clarification, could you share with us kind of the manner through which this is conducted? I.e., I want to make sure the public is aware that the district does not conduct the campaign, whether it's an outside entity.
Sure.
Just for clarity's sake.
If the board calls the election, what would ordinarily happen is members of the public who are in support of the measure would form a committee. It would be a separate organization, not connected to the district or the resources of the district. Of course, as I said, staff and board members have their own free speech rights. They can engage and participate with the campaign organization on their free time. But that would be a separate entity, and again, we wouldn't be advising it from a legal counsel point of view.
Thank you.
You're welcome. With that, we will move to Q1, which is adopt resolution 4905, ordering the school bond election on November 5th, 2024, and authorizing necessary actions in connection therewith.
Yes, Renee, President of CVS. So on this one, again, we just received some information in terms of clarifying the roles and responsibilities. I'll ask Ms. Carbuccia to share kind of some of the parameters around which this resolution are included. So Ms. Carbuccia.
Sure, as stated at the end of this resolution, to call a bond, it requires a 2/3 vote of the board. That does not mean the sitting board, that means the whole board. So the only way this item may pass this evening and call an election would require all 4 of you to unanimously vote for this, or it would need to wait until a future board meeting. Just want to make sure you know this isn't a board item that works by majority vote. It's a super majority.
Yeah, so I'll speak on this. So I speak in support of this. I mean, just being around and going to all the schools that we have in the age. I know I'm being redundant, I've said this before, but we all know the age of our schools, all the work that's needed, all the sites, improve buildings, replacing buildings that are 40, 50 years old, and we're already starting to do that work with the last bond, but I think this is very important for our community and for our students, quite honestly. So with that, I'm speaking in favor of this. I'll make a motion.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, second. Yeah. Okay, so mentioned the previous meeting, there's no other way we can make money. This is the only way we can use the funds to improve our schools, so hopefully the state of California changes its ways, but right now, this is all we have, so.
Good, that was first, the motion and the second, right?
Springfield,
Yes.
Audensivia,
Yes.
Lopez Ojeda,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis.
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Take it easy.
Thank you.
That moves us to D1, conduct a public hearing and first reading to gather community feedback for the proposed 2024-2025 local control accountability plan, the LCAP. I will now open the public hearing. Are there any speakers?
Yes, I have one speaker, Dina Donato Palmer.
Good evening to Board of Trustees, Dr. Aguirre, Mr. Rainfield, and community members. My name is Dina Donato Palmore, interim president of the Sweetwater Counseling and Guidance Association. As I read through the LCAP supporting documents, I need to bring attention to the absence of counselors in the work of MTSS. There seems to be an assumption that counselors are involved only in the academic development of students. Sweetwater Union High School District counselors have been in the forefront of implementing a multi-tier system of support since 2017. The American School Counselor Association, ASCA, MTMDSS. In fact, in 2011, we established a counselor standard committee to make sure that all students in all schools in the district receive proactive and intervention support. Unlike MTSS, which addresses the academic and behavioral needs of students in an academic setting, the multi-tiered, multi-domain systems of support, or MTMDSS, spans 3 domains: academic, college and career, and social emotional, which encompasses behavior. Tier 1, universal support. What do counselors do? Grade level classroom lessons for all students on graduation requirements, college admission requirements, financial aid and scholarships, college and career speakers, classroom lessons on wellness and mindfulness, site wellness centers coordinated by counselors, district-wide counseling, college and career fairs. Tier 2, targeted support. Tier 2 supports are intended to be short-term, goal-focused, and collaborative. What do counselors do? RFID monitoring, runs student support groups, individual student conferences, teacher conferences, parent conferences, student support team, hold credit recovery conferences and individual conferences for students with Ds and Fs. Tier 3, intensified support. These are intended for students experiencing emergency or crisis events or needs that are unresolved from the Tier 2. What do counselors do? Suicide assessment, referrals to community agencies, referrals for mental health support, referrals to district programs, individual student follow-up conferences, parent conferences, teacher conferences to support students. These are just a few of what counselors do beyond registration and class placements. With these experiences in system implementation, my question is, why are counselors not invited to the table to work on a district-wide plan of MTSS? When considering MTSS site counselors, will counselors be considered for these positions? We would be happy to provide a presentation to the board on what school counselors, your counselors in this district do to support our students. I encourage you to invite us so that you have a better understanding of our profession and our work. Thank you.
No further speakers.
There are no further speakers, and the public hearing is now closed. We will now have the staff presentation and board discussion on the LCAP.
It was just for that item. You guys were general public.
Good evening, Dr. Adoncevia, board members, our public. Thank you for being here. On a yearly basis, as a district, we take the LCAP several times throughout the year. One, to look at metrics and look at progress. This time we're looking at public feedback in terms of what we've done in our LCAP, what we've created, and then looking at if there's any additions or changes that we need to make. So we still have some time to do so. So on a yearly basis, by July 1st, as a district, as an LEA, we need to have the LCAP approved. That's in conjunction with our LCFF. and the parent budget overview. And so those items will be included this evening. The LCAP is a 3-year plan that describes the action, services, expenditures that we use to really look at those positive supports for our students. It's based on 3 major areas: our conditions for learning, engagement, and student outcomes. And within each one of those, there's elements such as basic services, standard alignment, our course access. If our students are expelled, what are we offering, their supports, our foster youth. We also look at parent engagement, school climate, student achievement, and student outcomes. All of those elements have actions and services within the LCAP, and then we also have metrics that are aligned with those. The LCAP requirement has changed a little bit, but these are some of the components. We have the LCFF budget overview, and you'll see that attached to the documents. We have a plan summary. We also have to include engagement of our educational partners. We have goals, actions, and metrics. And then we also look at what are those increased or improved services for foster youth, low income, and English learners, multilingual learners. We also have action tables, and then within the LCAP, there are instructions that we have to maintain. There are some new requirements as mentioned. This year's LCAP has several new requirements. One of them is that the district must identify within this 3-year LCAP students or student groups that fall within certain dashboard elements. The first one is any school within the LEA that has the lowest performance level on 1 or more state indicators on the 23 school year dashboard. Second one is a particular student group within the LEA that falls under the lowest performance bands. And the third one is a student group within a school within the LEA that falls within those lowest performance bands. We've modified the LCAP a couple of times. We've gone through a review with the San Diego County Office of Ed, and when we did the first fast pass, we had all of those elements within the LCAP. We will be making, those are there currently in the draft that we have now. We will be taking those out, and we're going to do an addendum that has a graphic representation of those groups that's a little bit easier to read. So even now as we speak, we're still doing some modifications to ensure that although the LCAP is a very dense document, trying to make it as accessible as possible for our community and our staff. There's also another additional requirement that we have that's called the equity multiplier, and it really provides additional funding for schools with non-stability rates. If that rate is greater than 25% and prior year socioeconomically disadvantaged pupil rate is greater than 70%. We have 2 schools that fall within that category. One is Palomar High School, or one of our continuation high school, and then Alta Vista Academy, which is our community day school. Alta Vista will receive about $83,000, and Palomar High School will receive just a little bit under $500,000 within those equity multipliers. Extensive work has been done by those staff at those sites to develop plans, looking at their students' needs, looking at potential outcomes and what those metrics would be. So our LCAP in the past has only had 4 goals. With this equity multiplier, we added a 5th goal as one of those requirements. As I mentioned, engaging our educational partners is one of those elements that is deeply embedded into the LCAP. And so as a district, we continue to conduct parent and student surveys, staff surveys, community surveys. Over 2,500 staff and students responded, as well as parents. We have 2 parent advisory committees, the DPAC and the DLAC. Both provide ongoing throughout the year feedback on our LCAP by LCAP goal. We also have site level feedback that occurs at the school site councils and parent advisory groups at the sites. We continually meet with our students through empathy interviews. Our South County SELPA is deeply embedded in giving us feedback. as well as our Sweetwater Union High School District Coherence Task Force, which has been looking through differentiated assistance over the last year at the work that we've been doing through the LCAP and following our metrics and looking at our student outcomes. We also engage our administrators through our middle school and high school PLCs, as well as ongoing conversations at almost every cabinet meeting, looking at our goals and progress and where we are, and then having conversations with our collective bargaining units as this. As I mentioned, the equity multiplier at schools has been an ongoing process over the last 3 months, looking at their data and then really looking at root causes and looking at supports to include those in the LCAP. So as I mentioned, all of our LCAP goals contain a goal, a metric, an action, and then analysis. That is also new in terms of having to look at for each individual goal. In the past, it's been, we've had some analysis on kind of overarching goals, but the LCAP has become much more specific in that manner. Just as a reminder, we have the same goals that we started with in 2014, except for that 5th goal, which is the equity multiplier. The first goal is really looking at student success in teaching and learning so that students are prepared for college and career. Goal 2 is creating that safe and healthy learning environment for each student, so that we can build a culture of equity and positive climate that promotes excellence throughout the district. Our 3rd goal is fostering and honoring that parent, guardian, community engagement to ensure that we are able to support our students' success. And the 4th one is that operational excellence, ensuring that we have transparent and coherent systems to also support student success. And as I mentioned, we have the equity multiplier, which is our new goal. And for both those schools, we're really looking at increasing graduation rate by 10% and also reducing the chronic absenteeism rate. Those were 2 of the elements that were identified by both schools as conditions and factors that if we make some notable changes, can really support our students to succeed. Just an oversight, I'm gonna go to the next one because I think it's probably easier to read. This is our total budget for 24-25. We have just a little bit over $705 million that will be attributed to our overall budget. Our LCAP is about $77 million. We also have some carryover in LCAP from this year, which will approximate about $40 million. Both the current year for 24-25 and the carryover are accounted for within the LCAP as well. So I wanted to provide just an overview of what the goals were and some of those metrics. Goal 1, as I mentioned, is really about preparing students for college and career. It's focused on academic achievement, having our students be college and career ready, and then closing those achievement gaps for our neediest students. That includes our English learners, our multilingual learners, our students with disabilities, our foster and homeless youth. And so some of those key metrics that we're looking at, as I mentioned, we look at A through G completion rate, our graduation rate, how they do in the smarter balanced assessment tests for both mathematics and English. We look at English learner progress, the AP or advanced placement pass rate, and then our CTE pathway completions. Some of the continued action steps, because we maintain some of the action steps from year to year, then you'll see some of the additional action steps. We still will continue with class size reduction, counselor caseload reduction. That means our standard caseload for counselors is 400. With the LCAP, we bridge that to 360 to 1. And then at some of our sites, we add additional allocations. With ELD, ALD, and bilingual class size reduction, we provide our English learners or multilingual learners some additional supports in classrooms. We also support AVID, International Baccalaureate, our foreign language and global studies programs, and the School of Creative and Performing Arts. And then we provide curriculum teachers on special assignment to support school sites. Some of the additional action steps within this are the counselor on special assignment, learning, recovery, and acceleration coaches. As you've heard continuously, we are in a COVID-19 post-pandemic world. And even though it's 4 years out for some of us, students still need additional supports. And so the Learning and Recovery Acceleration Coach allows students to have access to additional courses throughout the school year to ensure that they're able to meet those requirements for graduation. We've also added some additional supports with instructional classroom textbooks, supplementary resources, and then looking at funding, some additional funding to increase the quality of subs by paying a higher rate for those subs. So it's a pay differential. LCAP Goal 2, once again, it's that environment that we're looking at for our students. We continue with a safe, healthy learning environment, student well-being, culture of equity, positive school climates. Some of those metrics that we look at that are chronic absenteeism, suspension rates, dropout and expulsion rates. And then we look at the CHICS data, or the California Healthy Kids, and other surveys, along with empathy interviews to see where our students are and how they're doing. With that, some of the continued action steps, school safety, school connectedness, homeless and foster youth supports, student support services and mental health supports, and then some of the additional action steps. We had school resource officers in the past within the LCAP. They have been reintroduced into the LCAP this year. And that really comes a lot from our school safety and our CHICS data. We have incorporated additional mental health and coaching for students and staff through the Well-Wish Foundation, as well as multi-tiered student systems of supports, both at the site and district level. We do have a district assistant principal of safety and security to assist the director in supporting school sites. We've added some additional flexible allocations to look at specific needs at school sites based on their needs assessments. And then last year we added security cameras as part of the LCAP. That was something that came through in every single survey that we conducted. We are continuing with that. And then lifeguards for our summer programs at district pools, at our district pool. Goal 3, the parent engagement, community engagement. We continue to do the outreach, the parent education, our parent advisory committees, and our parent communication. The key metrics have been our surveys and also our interviews with families, as well as workshop and meeting participation, and then measuring our school messages, how we're communicating with parents and what the feedback is that we're receiving. Same type of elements. Let me go back to here, there we go. Our continued action steps continue to build that parent engagement component. We have community relations facilitators at many of our sites. I think 14 of them have them. We continue our parent education workshops, including Southwestern College, UCSD, adult education, and our parent advisory committees. We have added through COVID and ESSER funds, we had a teacher on special assignment that was working specifically with the parents. That funding has sunsetted, so we're adding the parent engagement TOSA to the LCAP. We are also expanding ways in terms of getting feedback, so we'll be doing additional surveys and feedback opportunities, and then leadership training for our parents. And then goal 4 is that transparent system, making sure that all those operational elements are aligned. Our metrics really look at our internal and external audits, our facilities inspection tools and Williams surveys, our survey results, and our business process reviews. And what we continue to do is we're aligning Infor. As you know, we implemented Infor for many of our services July 1 of last year. We continue to augment that throughout the district. We're also doing continued training through finance and fiscal and IT to implement that, as well as through human resources. We also look at our teacher professional development and induction program through this. Our classified training, we're adding additional components to that, training for substitutes, and then additional supports for our informational technology resources and supports. So that will include not only devices, but also technology training. And then, as mentioned, additional parent leadership trainings can also be incorporated through this. And then goal 5, that's the new one. That's the one that we're looking at Palomar and ABA. As I mentioned, it's that school connectedness, trying to improve attendance, decrease chronic absenteeism, increasing graduation rates. So we'll be looking at suspension, student achievement data, climate surveys, graduation and chronic absenteeism. And then these are some of the elements that the sites, through their process that was conducted over the last 3 months, is they're offering some additional support classes for students, supplemental resources within those classes. We have brought in Hey Tutor across the district, but we're going to add some additional Hey Tutor supports at those school sites. And then teacher professional development focused on academics, instruction, but also social emotional learning, and then looking at assessment and data analysis. And then for Alta Vista, they're going to augment an attendance coordinator. They will be bringing a literacy support teacher, and then the supplemental resources, looking at multi-systems of support, a restorative teacher, and then teacher professional developments based on those elements that are listed there as well. So the LCAP, as I mentioned, is a 3-year plan. Each year we reassess. The process for this is an open hearing. We will go back on Friday, June 7th. Earlier in the week, Finance received a fiscal overview, and Dr. Salkild and her team reviewed those elements. Very minimal changes. On Friday, the state and federal team and myself and Dr. Winters met with the San Diego County Office of Ed. They gave us an overview. They went through all the documents in the LCAP. Very minimal changes, most of them just elements that we just needed to augment a little bit. Those changes will be done by next week. And so when we come back on the 24th, we should have a pretty solid LCAP with all the information. Once the budgets are approved, the LCAP is approved, the budget is approved, we take it to, once again, deliver it to the county. And I think it's by October 8th of each year, the county has to approve the LCAP for us, as well as the budget. So that's part of the budgetary process. If there are any changes within that, we are able to make some of those nominal changes. And in August, if there's any review, we would make mention of what those changes would be.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the board?
Dr. Alvarez, how can the counselors be included in the MTSS portions of the LCAP?
So I think there's lots of opportunities at school sites. So MTSS in this particular way, we in the past have had a restorative practice position at middle schools. It used to be what was called the O room, and it was an opportunity room. It was an opportunity room to look at, instead of suspension for students, looking at ways to work with a student to look at the root causes of behavior and then ensure that their engagement, their behavior was appropriate so they could be in the classroom and not have suspensions. With MTSS, it's not only the behavior, it's, as Ms. Donato mentioned, it really is the academics, it's the social and emotional, and it's all those elements tied together. So MTSS is really not just about one person, it's about a team. And so when you're looking at the tiers and you're looking at the support, it's the team approach. So I think there's lots of opportunities within that for the counselors to be part of that. The elements that Ms. Donato mentioned in terms of providing the presentations, the parent meetings, all those elements are part of the MTSS process. So I think we're already doing some of those elements. And then we've allocated site-specific supports where there is some flexibility in how those funds are utilized.
Yeah. The idea is here is to use everybody, all hands on deck, to make sure that our students are successful. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I got a question here. So on page 7 of 37 on the update. I don't know if you, does that make sense to you, where I'm saying? It's on one of the other attachments. It's on the first attachment. It's not the whole thing. Thanks. Yeah, it's right there. So I was just curious on the, on the very bottom of the spreadsheet there in goal 8, and it says that at the very right, it says 25% will be enrolled in career technical ed course at CTE and shooting for 10% completers. What is our normal goal there? Because I see like the 2 years prior, we had a higher, enrollment rate of almost 50%. Just curious, are we shooting lower or what is that our normal number?
So if you notice in 1920, that was 14%. In 2021, it was 12%. In 21-22, is that 48% enrolled in CTE. The 2 years prior to that, pandemic-wise, that definitely changed some of the trajectory that we had with CTE. Prior to that, if we look at 2014 through 2019, we saw a dramatic increase in CTE and CTE completers. Hitting that wall in 1920 and 2021, we kind of had to hit a reset button. And so that is where we are, is really trying to look at how do we continue to increase our students. We've gotten back to more of a normalized level with the enrollment by 12th grade. The completion rate is probably the area that we need the most support in, because students will take maybe one course, but in order to be completed, you have to take 2 full years of that same course. And so that's something that we're working with sites. One is to increase student engagement, student interest, and to make sure that we have courses that are relevant to what those areas of interest and career aspects are for students. So it's a continual dialogue, but we are trying to go back to a more stabilized pattern.
Okay, yeah, no, that, I that makes sense, and I totally get with the COVID years, that really put a cramp on a lot of things. And I understand, we should be shooting for more completers, and I know, but students, it's not a bad thing the students are doing. They only have so much time, right, in school where they're gonna pick what they want to pick or get what they want class-wise, right, depending on what they want to do. I just think it's that it's important that we continue to, as we are, providing our students with as much career opportunities or studies, courses that we can, so they can have those experiences before they get out of high school. And even then, really, how can we tell a 18-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old that you need to know what you're going to do with the rest of your life when you're 17? It doesn't make no sense at all for the majority of students, but just so that they have those experiences, I just think that's important. And I was also glad to read in there and you highlighted it, where you're trying to do other things for engagement and surveys, and that's a really, if somebody could figure that out, that would be $1 million payday, right? To be able to get more parents, community members, students to participate in those surveys. That's something that that can be improved everywhere, but I appreciate that. And that's all I have.
Dr. Lee, if I can, I just wanted to add a little bit of context to that discussion because it's very timely in that we're seeing at the state level some possible initiatives coming down in terms of financial literacy as a possible requirement for graduation. So one of the things that Dr. Alvarez will be doing in the near future is pulling together a working group across different stakeholders, our teachers, our counselors, our classified across the board, really to look at and examine what the impact of that would be. As we're all aware, we also have another requirement for graduation that's going to be coming online pretty soon, which is ethnic studies. So there's a number of modifications that are going to be doing that are precipitated by the state, if you will. And so it's just a very timely discussion to have, bring our working group together of multiple stakeholders, because again, there's going to be impacts to our current graduation plan, how does it fit with some of our alternative programs. So I know Dr. Moore has been working with some of the alternative programs. So I think it's a timely conversation. You know, how can we support our CTE programs? And more broadly speaking, understanding that for most of us, life is not a linear thing, and sometimes we go right to four-year college, and sometimes you go into the workforce, and then you go to community college, and then four-year college. So life isn't the linear kind of plan that we don't like it to be for many of our students, and so how can we explore that more wholly, more comprehensively? And so I just wanted to add a little bit of context, because that is going to be happening in the near future. Our graduation requirements are going to be changing, and so how do we reevaluate, reassess what our graduation plan looks like? So that's some of the work that's going to be going into the future. I know this is for the LCAP, but I did want to add that context because it's coming in the near future, and I didn't want to lose an opportunity to share that piece. So that was the context.
And just to clarify, so the far right on that, remember this was a 3-year plan, but this one, because we had COVID, was a 4-year plan. So the far right is the goal that we had for that culminating year, which would be this year. We're actually, based on the 23 dashboard, we're at 46% enrolled in CTE. So we've established that goal. Because we built the plan originally within a COVID year, it was lower than what we would normally do. So that's what I meant by we were rebuilding.
Thank you, I understand.
Any further comments? Okay. I've been asked by the board members to actually, so there are a couple of folks speaking on this, to move to item Q4 first before moving on to the next item. And Q4 is a resolution number 4910 in the matter of promoting good health by discouraging tobacco use through support of the Sweet Water High School District Tobacco Use Prevention Education Program and advocacy for a solution to stop illegal tobacco sales in National City.
Yes, President, if I may, I want to thank Member Emerald for working with groups in National City and Chula Vista for bringing this forward. She wanted me to have our guest to speak on this item. So thank you.
First speaker is Roxanne Palestino.
Good evening, governing board members and Superintendent Dr. Aguirre. Nice to see you. My name is Roxanne Palestino, and I'm a member of the National City Coalition for Better Health and one of the founding members of SBSE Community. I reside in the South Bay. I'm a mother of 2 daughters with IEPs, and I will relentlessly pursue equity for the disabled. I am actively involved in our community on various issues. I believe in education, stand for social justice, and advocate for equity, inclusion, and diversity. I believe our school districts must collaborate with parents to ensure all children, regardless of color, race, gender, language, disability, ability, or socioeconomic status, are safe, healthy, well-educated, and included. I am here to express my dedication and support for the movement aimed at protecting our youth from nicotine addiction and other addicting substances by restricting the sales of harmful substances near schools. I strongly support the Sweetwater Union High School District resolution because I believe in the value it stands for, particularly the focus on protecting our youth from addiction and the importance of prevention and education. I'm confident this will improve the quality of life for our kids and our community. Enhancing the academic curriculum at local schools to ensure prevention and education is crucial. And the system should not criminalize youth facing addiction. Instead, our kids need academic, educational, and mental health support to understand and overcome addiction and mental health issues to prevent the school to prison pipeline. Keeping harmful substances away from schools is a logical and necessary step. I have personally witnessed the detrimental impact of cigarette sales to minors and addiction. I experienced this with my peers while growing up in the South Bay. Some of these acquaintances ended up in prison because they started smoking cigarettes, which opened the door to addiction to other substances like alcohol and marijuana, leading to other substances and bringing very negative consequences to their lives, families, and to the community. We're just here to thank the Sweetwater Union High School District and its leadership, especially Ms. Marty Emerald and Mr. Arturo Solis, for passing the resolution, supporting the Tobacco Use Prevention Education TUPE program, and for supporting the implementation of the Tobacco Retail License Program in National City to stop illegal sales to underage kids at our local schools. Thank you for your attention to this matter. We are eager to continue contributing to our community's well-being and look forward to working together to achieve our shared goals. And then one last thing, I want to take the time to encourage all teacher union members to vote from June 18th through the 24th for the State Council of Education, California Teacher Association's elections. Vote for Lisa Yegan, a dedicated, experienced advocate for educators. You guys would be lucky to have her representing you. Thank you.
Irma Hernandez.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Tina Hernández, soy residente de la Hall City y representamos al
Nuestro momentito, hay servicio de interpretación para